Alright, hello and welcome to Maths with El Profe Lo. In this video we're going to discuss how to use our calculator to display some quantitative data. Right? In a previous video we analyzed a random sample of quiz scores from a class of 136 students, and we created a stem plot, we created a histogram, we created a box plot. In this video, we'll show you how you can use a graphic display calculator or a GDC in order to get the information a little bit more rapidly, more efficiently. Okay, so we've talked about in your calculator being able to go to Stat, Edit, and enter in all of your information. We talked about going to Stat, Calculate, to calculate the one variable statistics, to get your mean, to get the standard deviation if it's a sample, to get the standard deviation if it's a population, right? As well as to get the 5-number summary that includes the minimum, the first quartile, the second quartile or the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. So now let's look at how we can plot this information and create a histogram, or how we could plot the information and make a box plot, right? So if we come over and we go to second stat plot, this is going to be where we have our options of creating our histograms and such. Right, we'll select option 1, and if we want to do a histogram, we will select this one that has a histogram. If we wanted to do a box plot, we would select the option with the box plot. With the little dots, it would have outliers. Without the dots, no outliers. I always recommend to use the dots for outliers. All right. So first we're going to do our histogram. Right. We're going to go and we say list 1 is where my data is. Right. And then I'm going to go to zoom, and I'm going to zoom option 9. Right. So when I press option 9, it's going to come and it's going to create my histogram. Right. Now, if I look at this histogram, it doesn't match the histogram that I have right here. And why is that? Well, if we hit the trace button, it allows us to go back and forth between our various bins in our histogram and be able to see, okay, well, this histogram goes from 74 to 80, and the next histogram goes from 80 to 86, right? And the next histogram goes from 86 to 92. But notice that the max says less than 92, so that means that this histogram includes values from 86 up to, but not including 92, right? And the next one would be from 92 up to, not including 98, and then this last one would start at 98, go all the way to 104. So we would be able to say that our particular class widths are width 6. Well, we noticed that for this histogram, the classes were not of width 6, right? And over here for the stem plot, the classes were not of width 6 either. So how can we change that? Well, we can come over to our window and say, well, where do we want to start our minimum? So let's say I start my minimum at 70, my maximum goes to 100, and I have a class width, or an X scale, of 5, right? If I need to adjust my Y scale, I can adjust my Y scale here, and let's say I put a maximum Y value of 5. Then when I hit graph, now I have the graph of my histogram when I have classes of width 5. Notice that this would match, Notice that this would match very closely to that histogram that is presented in our stem plot, right? That if I looked at this stem plot, right there, kind of represents the same piece. Okay. However, for our histogram down here, we were working with classes of width 10, so I can change that scale to 10. Go to graph, and now I see that that histogram looks the same. All right. If I wanted to see a little bit more to the left and to the right, I could go a little bit more to the left, that should have been 60, and to the right, and so now I can see my data. All right. Now, what if I wanted to make a box plot? Well, if I wanted to make a box plot, we know that we can do and create that box plot from the 5-number summary. right? Or what I can also do is to come over and to say, let me go back to Y stat plot, right? And instead of having a histogram, I'm going to select a scatter plot, right? The type of marks that I want to have in my scatter plot, I would recommend just leaving it how it is, right? And if you happen to have a color feature, you could change the color of your different box plots, right? But we'll go ahead and come and leave it at the blue. Okay. So then zoom, right? And I hit that zoom button, option 9. And there, that gives me my box plot, right? So I can see the box plot of my data as compared to here. Looks very similar, right? Once again, if I was going to describe my data from a box plot, right, I can't necessarily tell that I'm uniform from my box plot. I don't know the frequency of things occurring, but I can say that I'm fairly symmetric from my box plot. Right, so if I had only the box plot to describe my distribution, I might say, hey, the distribution of our quiz scores is fairly symmetric. There are no apparent outliers. Right, the median appears to be, and guess what I can do here? Hit trace. The median is 84. Right, I can look to the lower quartile, look to the upper quartile, and say, the median is 80, the median score was an 84, right? So that median score should have been an 84 here, not an 82, right? And that the interquartile range was 15.5. Okay, so that gives you the idea on using your calculator to create a box plot, using your calculator to create a histogram in a little bit more efficient manner.